Yeah, so with all the pitching, like we got so far behind on our podcast. Like I got comfy, you know. I was
Yeah.
like, hey, we got like 8 weeks of podcasts, you know, we don't need to record anything new. This is fine. And then all of a sudden, after all the pitching, after all of the events, after IT Nation, I'm like, man, the well's dry, guys. We got to get ahead on this. So Skip and I, like, when was the last time we actually recorded an episode? It's been a month.
It has. We've done so many one-offs, I've completely lost track, and,
Yeah.
we're still doing a bunch of stuff, but it's like, where are we at? I'm not on our regular cadence.
Well, and that's kind of like the topic of today is teamwork makes the dream work. And like because we've all been like working so well together, like it's just been flowing and it's been going and oh, that rhymes. Anyways, that you know, we've been able to assume things are going well. And when they're not, like, hey, we reach out. And that's part of our weekly level tens where we say, hey, what's not going well? And how do you need help? But you know, we get to this point where like, oh crap, well, now we need to catch up. And you see, like in the podcast here, like we've been like doing one-offs, we've been delegating, we've been trying to create new ones. And so but the company runs well because everybody knows what they need to be doing and what they need to be working on.
Yep.
And so because, you know, I was able to get like a bunch of guest speakers on, Skip was able to focus on the community and building things there. And because Skip was taking a good job of the community, I was also able to focus on pitching and building up IT Nation. But my failure was I didn't delegate enough of IT Nation. And so I started getting a little like overwhelmed there towards the end, the sheer amount of things that needed to be going on.
That was
So like
just a
last
lot.
minute, I started just dumping things on Skip and Sebastian, like, okay, you guys need to do this and this and this and this, which is bad management for me.
Now
I should have thought of that weeks ahead.
we
But
all
you
stepped up
know,
when we need to.
yeah, well, and that's why you got to meet regularly because when you do get a team that's not working in a bunch of silos, you know, you see a lot start to happen. You know, you see like these teams, like a lot of MSPs have a problem where like everybody likes to work in their own silo. Just give me a ticket, let me work it, and
Yep.
let me go home.
Yep. I've seen that.
And then you have the other ones that you have somebody saying, hey, let me help you do your job better.
Yep.
Not because I need to explain something to you, but because, hey, I see an opportunity to help you shine.
Yep.
And that's a different mentality than let me take this off your table.
Yep.
That would be a great topic for today where we talk about like how, you know, hey, what are you doing today? Is there a way for me to help you do that better?
Yep.
So I'm, you know, like for example, I was pitching at IT Nation and I also got roped into doing a workshop, which was a fantastic workshop. I'm like, okay, cool. And you know, like the whole of IT Nation was kind of my thing. And also it's like, oh crap, I can't do all this. I'm not gonna make it. It's like, hey Skip, is there any chance you could help me? And then Skip's like, oh yeah. And then Skip in true fashion, and anything worth doing is worth overdoing.
Yeah.
So
Yep. And no minute like the last minute.
yeah, yeah, we had all your strengths there on one thing. So you took that ball and said, "Hey, I need an example client to run with this workshop, blah blah blah." And then what do you spend like 3 4 days just like perfecting that thing?
Oh yeah, just throwing tons of stuff in there, more than we needed. But this truly is one of the ways you can leverage the skills in your team. So letting you take the lead on that was pretty natural. That's a great role for you. I am a little bit more in some of those smaller details, and once you kind of in broad brushstrokes painted that visionary picture of where we needed to go and defining those important elements, it was a lot easier for me to come in and start plugging in those pieces. Now, had that been reversed and I were the one trying to, paint this bigger visionary deal, we would have showed up with a couple of slides or something. I don't know. I just, that getting started is a challenging area for me. But once it gets going, that's where I do much better. So that's a great way to just leverage the skills in your team so that we work together. The handoff has to be careful, I think. So there are parts of everything that needs to be done, but you need to remember that it's still one thing. You can't break things up into completely disconnected unrelated silos. Anybody that's been in the corporate world knows how those silos grow. And still, it's one of the weird things about corporate America. I don't understand how they're able to work because they are so disconnected. There are fantastic skill sets in one silo that are just totally disconnected from another silo, and that they manage. So, it's smoke
That's
and
one of
mirrors
the
to me.
that's one of the things that drove me into starting Virtual C and Humanize it was the fact that there were silos and it is identified as a huge problem. And the silos exist, and I firmly believe this will happen in larger MSPs, is because you get so efficient at operations
Hmm.
that the handoff is seamless. And
Yeah.
because of that, because you're like our ticketing systems within a corporate world are works of art. They're still messy,
Mhm.
but good lord, we are good at escalation, delegation, and filtering to the right entity. We have people who their only job is to make sure that stuff happens.
Yeah, that's
And we
true.
get so good at it, you don't have to talk to the other teams.
Yep.
You just dump it in their queue.
Yeah.
And so you never have to like look at the other team. And so there's a lot of grumbling between the asset management team, they're always
Uh-huh.
kicking things over here, or the desktop team's always kicking things up to the engineers. And there's a lot of grumbling there because there's no relationship. And then it gets to the point where like you don't even talk to the end users, the
Mhm.
engineer, tier 3 engineer. So I was a tier 3 engineer, slash architect. And what the trick there is that the desktop engineers are the ones talking to the end users. The engineers, we don't talk to end users.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
That's
true.
that's a waste of our time.
Yep.
You need to talk to an end user. You talk to a tier 1. You
Yep.
talk to help desk. And that's wrong.
Yep.
The engineer does need to connect. And so the what you're talking about there, like with the silos being so like rigid in corporate world, it's because we've gotten so good at operations that we don't have to anymore, and we're
Mhm.
missing out on that human element, which is what drove me when we started connecting our engineers and connecting our technicians back to the user base and what their jobs were. We started solving really, really cool problems, and
It
companies started getting really, really good at what they're doing.
Yep, and I think that is an issue. If you are really good at fixing issues, but you don't solve the problems, you probably have a communication. You probably have silos that are existing, even in smaller organizations. And you can get really good at that. That problem happens, 14 times a week, and you've got a process down to solve that issue in just, minutes or maybe even automatically. But why don't we talk a little bit and understand, hey, what is the real problem here? And let's stop the issues from happening. And we miss out on that too many times when we don't collaborate.
Yeah. So there's two issues there that we identified at the corporate level was one is doing RCAs, root cause analysis forms. So we built up a standard form to ensure that an engineer did not pass the buck before it was their time. And so that an actual root cause, what was the actual cause of this event? Not is it fixed, but what
Right.
actually caused it? Can you point a finger to the culprit? Was it a rat chewing on the cable? Was it a definite problem with a patch? Where was the problem? And that takes time. You have to actually have spare time to do a RCA.
Yeah.
The other thing is we don't include the business users as part of our team.
Mhm.
And so in IT, we see engineering, technician, account management. Those are our team members. We don't see the end user from accounting. We don't see
Yep.
the key stakeholder. They might be a fringe member, a key stakeholder, the person that's a point of contact at your client,
Yep.
but you don't actually see them as a member of the team. You see them as something else. They're outside. And because of that, how can you work with somebody who's not a member of your team? You're just going to
Hmm.
delegate to them, or you're going to ask things from them. They're outside input coming in, or you're putting out to them. But imagine if your point of contact was part of the team to make solutions for your client, rather than you just creating solutions, walking over to them and giving them solutions? What if they were part of the process?
And
And
I
that's
think,
where you reach that next level.
yeah, and I think this is really important in MSPs, because if you kind of go back theoretically, so to speak, to the beginning of this MSP business model, was we came into companies and we said, hey, rather than you going out and hiring an employee, all right, and that employee would, you know, naturally be part of that organization, part of that team, we as MSPs, we came to businesses and said, hey, we'll take that on at a fractional cost. You really can't afford to hire three full-time engineers to do all this stuff. Hire our team for the equivalent of one FTE. And that makes great business sense. But once we've done that, sometimes we separate ourselves, and whether it is intentionally in some cases, because I think what you said, Adam, we're chasing that operational efficiency uh, goal, and we think we need to do this, but for whatever reason we separate ourselves from that business's team, and that's where things really break down. So I think we have, as MSPs, we've got to come back and we've got to start where we started and say, hey, we want to be a part of your team, we want to be part of the organization, so that together as a team we can truly succeed.
Yeah, and I think so this episode is airing during the week of Thanksgiving here in the United
Yeah.
States. And look around the dinner table on Thursday and the dysfunction amongst the family, and you got the strange uncle, you've got like the typical like patriarchal family or the nuclear family or the broken family, whatever it is we all have these teams that came together, if you want to look at it like this. And if you look at your own MSP as, yes, is everyone perfect? No.
No.
Are you together? Yes. Are you all sitting around the table through some common event or goal? Yes. Now, what is the role of everybody at that table? And if you're thinking, oh, my client doesn't want to be on the team, well, think about your Thanksgiving table. Some people don't want to be at that table, but there they are.
Yeah.
Your moody teenager, whoever it is, and including them in the conversation and getting them to think through or be part of the solution
Yep.
allows them to think, whoa, well, maybe I do like being here. A lot of times people become estranged because they don't get included. And so with your clients, you've spent so long just telling them what to do that they become that estranged family member.
Hmm.
And you got to reconnect with them and bring them back in. It's like, hey, we like your thoughts. We got like 6 projects here we're thinking about next year. What do you think about like which way we should go?
Right.
Just be curious, be humble, and bring them back into the conversation at the table so that they can say, oh, well, what do they do? Like, well, this one is going to make your internet faster. This one is going to make it so that your core network has less downtime. This one's going to allow you to have your website be upgraded to be
Hmm.
flashier so that you guys look better. This project here is going to refresh your PCs so that everybody gets shiny new computers. We're going to upgrade you to these new Lenovo's or HPs or whatever,
Yep.
so you can have a mobile workforce. And then the client or the key stakeholder can say, those are really interesting solutions. Do any of them allow us to work from home?
Hmm.
Like, well, if we get this new firewall in and we get the new laptops deployed, that should allow us to see we can upgrade the agents on the laptops with the new firewall capabilities. And you should be able to work from anywhere without having to do any big heavy lifting on a VPN. It should be seamless. And the client be like, oh man, let's do that. How much does that cost?
Let's do that. Yes.
And now you're on the same team together. Now this person, instead of like you telling them we need to buy these things, they're like, they were a part of the conversation. And now they're your advocate. They can go back to their CFO and say, hey, if we do these two things, we can work from home.
Yep.
And now they're pitching for you rather than doing the usual, okay, the MSP needs $30,000 next year to do this thing, or they want us to upgrade
This
to
thing.
platinum
Right.
support. And it's an intangible. And But now you have an advocate. Now you have a family member who wants to be there. That moody teenager who is grumpy forever because no one ever talked to him or treated him like an adult is now sitting there looking at people and is part of the conversation, is having a good time, is engaged, and they want to be at the table. They like being at the table because they're included now. And that's building a good team.
That is. Kind of leveraging off that family deal we've all had, and maybe it's not family, maybe it's just some, sort of engagement where you have a diverse group of people. And you always get that one person who feels like they have to explain everything in the tiniest details. And, I have a wide range of interests, so I follow along on those because, a weird part of me just gets interested in some of these things. But many times, when that person kind of goes off on some really specific, detailed explanation, everyone else at the table is just checking out. They don't really care about all these little, um, very specific items that is important to this one person, but for everyone else and in the conversation going on, they are fairly meaningless. And I think many times as technical people, we can fall in that role. And all of a sudden, we can find ourselves trying to explain the difference between a bit and a byte, or who knows, any number of things. And we've got to make sure that our contributions to those conversations are not focused on any one person, but rather than everyone's contribution is building to a goal, a solution that will make things better or solve an overall problem. And so I think that's a real key element to get in. And we talk about this all the time. The cultural expectations that seems to have fallen on the IT industry, that we're supposed to have the answers. We're supposed to be able to teach everybody about technology or whatever that is. And I do think we've got to shift a little bit there and participate with the team without overwhelming them with some you know way too specific set of data.
Go back and listen to I was just trying to look for it. Go back and listen to our podcast on relatability.
Yep.
And, we had a coach on there, Gina, who did a fantastic job of talking about how to be relatable, and you can't be relatable. So, I'm not a sports watcher. I sported out in college, I All-American status, like, it was fun, it was interesting. I was a track All-American, and, I just never really got into watching sports on TV. I loved playing sports.
Hmm.
Still to this day, I do love playing a good bout of volleyball or a good competitive sport. I'm in. But watching sports never has been a place for me. So Thanksgiving gets weird for me because everybody loves
Yep.
talking football.
Yep.
And I try my best. I like it when they win at the game they play. That I know the details of how to play football, but like watching football and who the players are, who the coach of the team is, no idea, and the entire
Yep.
history behind them, and I hear my family debate back and forth, these people and what they're doing, and I feel bad because I have a hard time relating there.
Yep.
I can relate on the mechanics of the game, but I can't relate on the politics of the players.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I mean, do you hate the Dallas Cowboys? No, I have no feelings.
No
Should
feeling.
I? You And, I use that as an opportunity to get, like, my family members to talk about football and teach me. So,
Yep.
what is it about this thing? Like, okay, what's the deal with this coach? I feel like I've seen this in the headlines a couple times. Can you explain this to me? And you just watch them go off,
Yes. Yep.
and they're having fun, and now they've got somebody to teach. But if you're on the receiving end of that and you didn't ask for it, you're just looking for a way out or trying to find the nearest glass of wine
Yep.
because this is
Just
gonna be a
some.
long ride. So, know your audience so that you can work together, and when you're sitting there and you're talking and trying to win over that key stakeholder and bring them into your team, you gotta give them something to relate to. And
Mhm.
if you're talking firewalls, that is unrelatable for them. But if you say, "Hey, Tell me about what's going on with you. The things that you don't know. Just like I don't know football. Like I don't know what the deal with that player is and what the all the why they've been in the headlines so much. Ask them like, "Hey, what's going on with your company right now?" Something they're passionate about. They work for this company, they
Mhm.
love the company. Let them regale you and sit back and let it wash on you. And then as an engineer, 10,000 solutions. I guarantee you, as they tell the story, you're going to start relating technology to their story
Yep.
piece by piece by piece by piece. And
Absolutely.
then it's going to create this image in your head. So when I was at IT Nation, and I was being judged by the judges, one of the questions was asked of me is like, how are you going to take these 10,000 solutions that are out there and map them to business processes? I said, I don't do that. Our solution does not do that. The MSP does.
Yep.
You guys already have all the information. You just need to relate it to what your customer is saying. And you can
Yep.
only do that if they're on your team telling their story.
You
And
know,
when you're listening to the story, you can now say, "Oh, this is cool." Just like when my friend tells me about the football, I can say, "Oh, yeah, there was a time when I was chasing down the quarterback, and now I'm relating the operational items to their bigger story."
yep. That's an interesting element. So, at IT Nation, obviously we talked to, good grief, I don't know how many people we talked to, but 3 days worth of it, and people would come up, and I could tell they were curious. They want to know, how are you doing this? What is your magic lever? Where's the formula that takes technology and plugs it into a business solution? And that was my exact conversation to them was, it doesn't. Our tool doesn't do that. We facilitate the conversation. And that's really the important part. We tell people all the time, we think our tool is pretty cool. We love our framework. But at the end of the day, you don't have to have either one to have successful engagements. My old man joke is, you can do all this with a big chief tablet and a number two pencil.
Yes.
Not many of you people get that, but anyway, so it really is about how you're going to do it, um, as opposed to the tools that you're going to do to accomplish that. And at the end of the day, you have to have a conversation. I
Yeah,
love what you say, Adam, about our stuff. We don't automate much, but we're lazy, right? And so, we can make things work better, but yes, you are going to have to participate as a team member with these groups if you want to get something truly, truly awesome accomplished. It's got to be a team event.
yeah, and I can't stress enough, and I should have said this after the pitch when they were asking me this question. I'm like, the dirty secret is you don't need our tool.
Hmm.
Our tool
Yeah.
just makes things easier.
Yep.
And so you can walk in again, big yellow legal notebook, number two pencil, and
Yep.
start having a conversation with your client today that will net you results tomorrow. And it'll net both of you results tomorrow. Because
Yes.
what I said, like you guys are not including your clients on your team. And if you do include your client on your team, that's when dreams come true.
Hmm.
To
Yep.
be pedantic or whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
like lofty here. It's the secret sauce. You need to have conversations with people and bring them into your social bubble and bring them to the table with you. 'Cause then they can reciprocate by bringing you to their decision-making table. Like,
Yep.
"Hey, we've been discussing this back and forth." You gotta bring them in first, relate to them, and then they'll bring you to their tables as well. Like, "Hey, we'd really like your input on these things. Can you come to our board meeting on Thursday and just be a fly on the wall, listen?" And that relatability is where you start building a stronger team. And now, as we say, you don't need business acumen. Your client already has it and they're on your team.
Yep.
Now you have a entity that behaves like a VCIO. You have an entity that works together to come up with solutions that are going to augment clients because now your technicians are mapping their understanding to your client's business solutions. And then together you sell to your client and you sell the idea of augmenting business strategy with technology.
Yep.
And that's the secret sauce. Now our tool does that and makes it very seamless. It's kind of like EOS. You can read traction and implement. Most people who read traction and self-implement have a hard time of it because
Hmm.
they need the framework.
Yep.
They need the accountability.
Yep.
And because that's a core part of traction. So if you get traction and you get an implementer or you get an EOS coach and you get the tool,
Hmm.
suddenly you've got their book Rocket Fuel. You are taking off quickly because you got everything aligned. There's
Yep.
accountability there. There's a tool to track the options, and everybody's flying forward.
Yep.
And that is what we're looking for here. And that is the secret sauce. So
Well,
go ahead, Skip.
yeah,
Final thoughts.
on that team, I think one, yeah, to kind of close it out, I think we can all agree that, hey, the team can get more stuff done. So, the sports analogy pops up all the time. You may have a football team or a baseball team or whatever, and you've got outstanding players. They're the ones getting all the big stats and the MVP status and whatever, and the gigantic paychecks, whatever. But at the end of the season, when that team wins the championship, when they are the ultimate winners, everybody on that team gets the championship ring. Everybody gets to say, "Hey, I, won the Super Bowl, or I won in the World Series." Whatever that is, right? And your relationships with your customers should be the same way. So if you have a customer who does fantastic, they've, tripled their business, they've launched new initiatives, whatever it is that made them really successful, are you really celebrated as a member of that team? Maybe you aren't, the design guy. Maybe you aren't the engineer that, built that huge building, but was your contribution really part of their team? And are you considered, part of the success? And if you're not, then you're just a vendor. It's someone they're just buying materials from, buying raw services from. You've got to be part of that. But here's the cool part: it goes the other way too. And when you're able to help your customers be really successful, then there's a financial element that comes back, and in just that one simple level, your MSP becomes very successful as well. And so you really get to be part of the team, and it goes both ways. So that is a real indicator: is does a success on one side, I guess that's where we probably need to break that down, but does a success in one group really promote success in the other? And if it does, you have a team. And if that's missing, then you need to work on the teamwork.
Yeah, and as a final thought here for me is silos are when you operate really well together in one area and then you hand off to another area.
Yep.
That is the other silo. You can identify silos in your organization by saying who do you not talk to? Who do you hand things to instead? And that is you have your MSP silo, and within that silo you have subsections, and then you
Hmm.
have your client silo. They have
Yep.
their things that they're doing, and you don't care to see what's in their silo as long as they are letting you run your technology.
Yep.
And so those silos, you need to break them down and you need to join them together. So get out of your silo. Stop treating your client like they're this other entity.
Hmm.
Treat them as part of your team, and your profits will increase, your revenues will increase, and you will have a great year.
That is it.
All right, thank you, everyone. It's great to be back into our regular cadence of
Yes.
podcasts, and happy Thanksgiving to all you American or United States Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And enjoy your turkey, have great naps, recover, and get ready for this last 5 weeks of the year.
See you.